Hello, and welcome to another indie interview. I am your host, Greyworks. I am the creator of Howling Hoods and Entangled, another indie animated series. And today I am joined with a very special guest, the very first, not only live action, but also puppet guest here. Devin, why don't you give yourself a brief introduction?
Greetings. Yeah, Devin Ludlow. I'm a puppet designer, puppeteer, voiceover sometimes. Been doing these things for about 20 some years.
Mhm.
Um, got an Emmy for my work with something called The Early Show with Alex, and I got the amazing chance to do puppet design, lead all the fabrication, be the lead puppeteer, and do some of the voices for the upcoming film Buddy.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, that movie's been taking the world by storm. Even like the fact that like it even hasn't come out yet, it's already been so prevalent. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, the marketing team's insane. I love them. They're unhinged.
uh, yeah, I can't wait to see it. I already got my ticket. There's only two theaters in Illinois that are playing that movie, but just
Oh my God, really?
yeah, it's like it's tough to find these kind of movies where they're playing these days, at least for the premiere.
Yeah.
Uh, But first, I want to start with our basic intro question that I give all my guests. What have you been watching lately, and what are you looking forward to? It just doesn't have to just be a movie or TV show. It can be a book. It can be a video game. It can be a play. It can be radio. Anything.
Interesting. I mean, all of the above. I'm just one of those people who needs to saturate myself. You put your
Mhm.
antenna in the universe and you try to pick up on all the waves coming from all kinds of different directions. Um, and partly I'm doing some designing for a kind of wild art filmmaker, um, Godfrey Reggio, did a film way back when called Koyaanisqatsi. We're doing a whole film about, as he calls it, apex predator AI. So I've been sort of absorbing that as much as you can, which is it's sort of like drinking Pepto Bismol or something. It's not something you can take very much of. Um, so then to balance that, some like some good reading. I just read Lincoln and the Bardo, which they're making a stop motion film of. It's
Mm,
George Saunders' book about Willie Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's son's kind of ghost in this middle world. So it's a
mm.
little bit Beetlejuice, and it's a little bit horror, and it's a little bit Civil War. Um, and then I've been rewatching some old sci-fi things that I really enjoyed. I always really enjoyed because I'm working on a sci-fi piece soon. Something called The Expanse, which I really enjoyed. It was an Amazon series way back when, and
Sounds
it's like
familiar.
yeah, realistic sci-fi things. So I've been watching some of that. Um, uh, I think those are the ones that have been affecting me the most. But I always go back to the well. I always go back to Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead, or early Peter Jackson films in order to
Mhm.
refresh
Meet the
myself.
uh,
Yeah,
Meet the Feebles.
Meet the Feebles. Yeah, which if you watch that film, it's like the kind of movie you need to take a shower after you've seen it. You just
A
have this.
little. Yeah,
You feel like you've
yeah,
got gasoline all over your whole body. It's terrible and
yeah.
fabulous.
I watched it in high school. It was one of those movies of just like I didn't really get just the dedication of the craft that goes into making something like that. Because watching it now as an adult is like this is crazy. Just
Yeah, total madness. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Uh, but also, yeah, we've talked about it a little bit so far, but I want to get more to it. You are a puppeteer. You're a puppet designer. You work with puppets, and from what it sounds like, your life is kind of wrapped up in puppets to a degree. I gotta ask, like, how does one get into that career specifically? Because I have like I've played with puppets to a bit. Like I've made a few, but I've never like when I see like a classic puppeteer, that always blows my mind. Of just the level of detail that goes into that.
Yeah. I'll give you the shortest answer. Was one of my mentors, a guy named Michael McCormick, who he made the Skeksis in the original Dark Crystal, and
Nice.
a bunch
Ooh.
of goblins for Labyrinth, and some things for Return of the Jedi. Salacious Crumb. He always said it. You don't pick puppetry; it just descends on you like a dark cloud. From then on, you're in. I did not pick it. I started out as a dancer way back when,
Mm.
and that sort of led me into some physical theater, and then before I knew it, I was working with a small puppet company in Portland, Oregon. This is when I was living in a clown commune. And then we started touring, and they took me to Eastern Europe, where things were completely different. It was like an perverted world where puppeteers were kind of the most important people in all of society.
Oh
I mean, the
yeah.
whole time we felt like it was a prank that was going on, but it was
Yeah.
like meet the mayor's family. It was kind of amazing. So I spent some years touring in Eastern Europe and South
Mhm.
America. And then in my New York years, I was in a pirate puppet rock band, and I just kept finding that whatever I was doing puppets, I was trying all kinds of things. I do all kinds of performance, but puppets always led me to the most fun projects and the
Uh-huh.
most like receptive, insane, maniacal audiences.
Mm.
So that like interchange between the audience and the performer was always like level 10, amazing when I would be doing any kind of puppet work. And then it sort of like was the easiest flow in terms of the of where things went. And then they just kept opening up from there, more possibilities. And I
Mhm.
started doing really weird stuff and making short films in my garage, which turned into a feature film, and it went on. But it was like Michael said, it wasn't something I chose. It was something that chose me.
Yeah. That sounds really incredible because it's just like it's not one of those things you just kind of go into because it's like there's so much complication to the craft. Because I remember there was a movie called Strings. It's
Yeah,
not Eastern Europe. It's Swedish, I believe, or maybe Norwegian. Uh, but from that area of Europe, and just that the because it's marionettes and just the complications behind that. It's just like it takes like I did not know this. It takes like a marionette master at least 25 years to learn the craft. Just
it's hard. I mean, those creatures in particular are like mechanical nightmares.
mhm,
I think it's James Ortiz is his name, puppeteer on Project Hail Mary. He talks about this sort of kind of trinity that goes on
mhm,
between um, engineering, artistry, and the performance.
mhm,
And any one of those, you could just go down the rabbit hole. And engineering usually is what takes people far away. They get really into the mechanics. They get really into the specific kinds of materials, and you can just lose yourself there. But finding a balance between all three is what makes a puppet really work. Something
mhm.
that you can perform with really easily, but also can express itself really well.
Yeah, God,
Marionettes are like by far the hardest and craziest things.
yeah. But I
Yeah,
imagine those
yeah,
they look so complicated. I've only been able to make I've made a handful of puppets and they've been pretty rickety for the most part because I usually use kind of like cheap material. But I do have this guy from when I was 8 years old. Just
awesome. I love it.
Pablo. My grandma took me to make him. So yeah, that's our Our family's like full of like weird people with like kind of an Eastern European background who likes puppets. So
Yeah, no
that's my
doubt.
group. Just so I've always definitely had a fascination of them growing up, especially with movies like as you mentioned, Dark Crystal. Like I asked, were there any like movies, TV shows you saw as a kid specifically that really like grabbed you when you saw the, like just the puppetry and stuff like that?
I think when I was a kid, it was just sort of an ambiance of these like there's this kind of golden age, 70s, 80s, maybe even early 90s of some really amazing performers and creatures that were being made, right? And
Hmm.
that went from the range from like Jim Henson's world to aliens, Rick Baker stuff, all this kind of cool thing. So that was like the ground from which I sprung. But I don't think I really got kind of inspired in that way until I saw Jan Spankenmeyer's films. This insane Czech filmmaker, same period, 70s, 80s, but he uses a mix of stop motion, live action, and animation to create these really disturbing, fabulous worlds. If you haven't seen them, definitely check out either his Alice in Wonderland or one called Faust. The
Oh,
story of the man who makes the deal with the devil for all the knowledge in the world.
yeah.
Uh, and then I sort of like broke open things because a lot of the Hollywood stuff was so well done, it's kind of removed. You're like, wow, that's great that they can do that, but this was something you're like, you could see the fingerprints on everything. You could see the mistakes. You could see the chipped paint, and
Mhm.
you felt like you yourself could just dive in there and make something. And the brothers Quay also, their work, some motion stuff was like, whoa, you could just make this in your backyard with just a little bit of mania. One could do anything. Yeah. Those were the first two that really like inspired me in terms of, oh, I could do this too.
Mhm. Mhm. Just But yeah, we've mentioned it a little bit, but you also have independent work as a filmmaker and the way you approach story. Would you say like your background as a puppeteer is an inspiration? Like, are you more of a visual guy when it comes to your approach to story? Uh,
This will be like a little bit of an esoteric answer, but it's like it branches off, right?
mhm,
And I think there's film is such a this goes really animation is the like holy grail of this, but it's such a it's not just visual storytelling, it's also the editing storytelling. One
mhm,
thing paired against the other. That operates with your mind in a very particular way, and it inserts these like really deep, powerful emotional hooks that people will just adore a film for their whole lives because it's hit them so hard, affected them. I'm sure you've got films like that.
oh yeah.
Live performance is this whole other universe of like ritual and audience energy interaction and creating a sense of constant danger.
Mhm,
Puppets have this thing on stage where people are a little bit they're really excited because they're a little bit scared because really anything happens because the rules are gone when puppets get
mhm,
involved.
yeah.
Uh, and so people, it's like I don't know, it's like you're watching a train come at you or something. But as far as film goes, the possibilities are so rich. And once I started playing with them, the both possibilities and the puppets on camera, I started realizing like, oh wow, there's all these really old tricks, film
Mhm,
tricks you could use from the 1920s on to create in-camera effects. Um, like I tried green screen once, and I was like, this is kind of terrible. It's like it's more work in a way, and it's less fulfilling because you're just filling in some background, let's say. But when I started playing with older techniques like single point perspective or uh, projections or rear and front projection and cloud takes and all this kind of cutting edge 1978 technology, it became really really fun. It became like you're working dynamically on all these levels at once, and you can
mhm,
really like create a whole world for the camera to play in. Um, it takes everything flat out of film and just expands it exponentially, which is
mhm.
like you would think would be the opposite if you don't have a human actor, but it's totally um, the realms of possibility just keep opening up and opening up. So the next one we're going to make is going to be completely underwater.
Ooh, that's gonna be a interesting challenge. Just
Yes, yeah. Part of it is like the insanity of the challenge. Like, how is water going to bend light? How's it going to shift the color spectrum? And how are puppets going to operate underneath there? And how long until we lose a puppeteer to the waves? Like, this is the kind of excitement that we're looking for. Um, but yes, like all of it is puppets bring like a materiality to film
mhm,
that audiences like love. One thing when we showed, when we were doing Buddy at Comic Con, the audience taste has shifted significantly. It was like the Avengers trailer came and everyone's like, oh, like great. But anything practical that they were showing, like Buddy, but also Guillermo del Toro gave a great speech too. Like audiences were like rabidly excited for it. They want to see it and feel it, and you can. The camera shows it. And as a filmmaker, it's extremely fun to just start playing with it and start, moving around in those worlds.
mhm. Yeah, Del Toro is such a interesting person as well when it comes to aspects of practical effects because he does have such a stage influence with a lot of his work and his
Mm-hmm.
he made a stop motion movie Pinocchio not too long ago, and
Yeah.
something that like kind of like what I liked about that movie was kind of like the somewhat uncanniness to the character of Pinocchio he put in. Would you say like uncanniness and puppetry, like not all puppets are scary, but there is like a weird like physical level to them, like why do puppets kind of get into that like somewhat uncanny level?
Yes. Yes. So many things to say about this last question. Um, uh, Before the Uncanny, I did have the chance to visit the Pinocchio set. One of my friends was a producer on it.
That's
And
so cool.
so during lockdown, during COVID, we were like in semi lockdown, they were shooting a lot of it because they would just put, some poor soul under these sets and they would just animate all day long alone. But he was such a nut, Guillermo del Toro, with this, that they were telling me that um, he would do multiple shots with variations. And as you are aware, in stop motion, like that doesn't ever happen. It takes so long just to get the character through one set of motions. You've done all your planning and creative work before the shooting. But he would have them do the whole set of motions and then be like, let's go back. And this time he like looks up a little more. And then they would shoot the whole thing again. So, it was kind of a remarkable feat in terms of the stop motion part of it. As far as uncanniness goes, yes, that's one of their superpowers. I mean, puppetry is such a broad range. There are a lot of things that have a lot of expression, but there's a reason, like kids who are on the spectrum, the autism spectrum especially, respond to puppets openly the way they never do to normal people. Mm-hmm. Right? There's this positive side of it where the usually locked facial expressions allow people to open up to them. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side of that, it creates a certain kind of discomfort and possibility in any other audience that experiences them. So when you're seeing these characters move, there's a part of you that sees them as real and a part of you that sees them as unreal. And it creates this amazing space for possibility. A friend of mine calls them like Trojan horses that way. So they can like really slip in and deliver insane messages or really powerful messages that like a normal person could never do. Which is why they're used a lot for political movements. Right? They're used a lot for horror. They're used a lot for comedy. They can go and do things that people can't because of that uncanny-ish quality, which is the opposite of CGI uncanny valley. Right? That uncanny valley only puts people on the like, this is some kind of predator trying to mask himself as a human. But puppets have the opposite thing. They're like, we're not really trying to mask ourselves as human. We are not human. We're something else, but we're not trying to pretend we're you. And it's sort of both, it's like fairy, it's both inviting and terrifying because it's outside the bounds of our reality. At least that's how we receive it at the base level, right?
Yeah. You mentioning aspects of it kind of looking a bit like uncanny and kind of in between kind of reminds me of like something I remember Jim Henson said of like his mindset when he came to like approaching puppets and practical effects. It's like his kind of ideology was that like puppets and makeup and animatronics should look a little fake because like it's the sense of like play and wonder with it. Yeah. I know different like creators have different like mindsets with that, but I know like Jim Henson, who's like kind of like the godfather of puppetry, that was his take on it.
And that's the creative one, right? That's like you could put some eyes on that stop sign behind you, and it becomes alive, and you start sort of seeing, oh, like everything around me is kind of alive. Mm-hmm. Everything around me is kind of got possibilities. Things I didn't really understand could like be characters or suddenly characters. Opposite of the CGI thing, where it's something pretending that it's not something else. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. But that playfulness is it's like absolutely central. I don't think I've talked about this too much, but I remember when I was a kid turning into a teenager, people start sort of shutting themselves down from playfulness. They're like, oh, I can't play anymore. That's not cool. And I was like, this is, in my mind, I was like, that's kind of insane. I'm going to make a conscious decision to keep playing with everything. Like this stick can still become a spaceship or a friend or a guardian or something. And you can talk with it and move around. And we shouldn't give that up. It's like something that we're given in childhood that we purposefully lock away because it kind of ostracizes us. But it's whenever it comes out, right? Like the Muppets are really good at this. Whenever we get that plate, it's like that little part of us still wants to recognize it. That everything around you is alive and everything around you wants to play. The Pee-wee does that great. He does it wonderfully too. He uses that same kind of playful energy.
Yeah. Though we've talked about it a little bit, but I kind of want to get more into it. You worked on the new gigantic, like maybe like the biggest horror movie of the year, Buddy, created by the brilliantly talented Casper Kelly.
Yes.
I gotta ask, like, how did you get how was it like working on this? And like, did Casper Kelly approach you? What was it like working with him? Just
a lot of ways. The initial thing was I had been working on a short film in Atlanta George R. R. Martin has been making a series of short films unreleased. Hopefully, they will get released someday. But he's been making them, and they're like films from his friends from the old days, sci-fi and fantasy, all kinds of stuff. It's Twilight Zone-ish. And so I had made these like decayed post-apocalyptic Disney creatures. And a few of the Atlanta people there saw that, and so when they were looking for someone to do this insane job for Buddy, my name got put into the hat. I didn't know Casper. I didn't know anybody else associated with it outside of this one producer. And then it was about 7 or 8 rounds of interviews up against every other puppet maker in the country, and they picked me at the end, as they said, because I was a maniac.
Love that.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of how Francis Ford Coppola got his friend to design all the costumes for the Dracula movie, because she made sets in Japan, and he said she's the perfect weirdo to bring on here bring on for these costumes, and those costumes look amazing.
It was a little bit of that vibe, and then it was a hugely ambitious thing. I mean, there's like 25 different characters that I designed, and a very tight budget, so we weren't making multiples of anybody. It was kind of like once it's in, it's in, and a lot of these puppets get murdered. So once they're gone, they're gone. There's no there's no going back, no reshoots for this thing, and we were making as fast as we could. I had an amazing crew of like truly wild people who can make the most amazing things. None of us had worked together before, but we just they parachuted in, and we started working amazingly well together. One person said one hooks who has been making Barneys since he was like 3 years old. So he went to Macau when he was 18 and just started making giant people. A woman named Lynette Eklund, who made like velociraptors for Jurassic Park with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. She was like this old hand who had like made everything. Another puppeteer named Chris from Atlanta, who you just sort of like throw materials at, and like Rumpelstiltskin, this mess would happen, and then out would come a creature. So many other amazing people. And Casper was a fantastic director that way. He was pushed out of his comfort zone, I think, because he's worked a ton with animation, right?
Yeah. And
so with animation, there's a lot of like, move the eye a little to the left. How about the tails a little bit bigger? And you can't quite do that in the material world. It's like, sorry, these are the things we have. This is what the fur is like. This is what the hands are like. So, and we were on a really tight schedule, so he didn't have a lot of time to tinker. But he was really great, and he understood what we were doing. Right? His thought process is way outside the box, and so he was able to understand really immediately and intuitively the kind of insane designs that I was sending his way.
Yeah, I mean, the designs are super impressive, because I'll be honest, when I first heard about the premise of Buddy, I did kind of roll my eyes of like, a murder mascot thing, because we've seen thousands of those from now on. But what I'm so impressed by these designs, and this is a big gripe I have of a lot of like studios that try to replicate that for like horror, for like their video games or whatever, it's that they make the puppets too purposefully scary up front. To the point where like no kid would like this. Just because I've worked in both haunted houses. I've also worked as like a mascot, with like an entertainer, essentially.
Oh, God. So you know from the inside.
Yeah. It's just like kids like to be scared, yes, but it's just like there's like a regular mascot is kind of uncanny enough.
Yes, exactly. That was one of the things Casper and I would go back and forth about, because there were some folks who were like, "What about sharp teeth or something?" And the whole thing was like, "No, like this thing is scary enough on its own. If you've ever seen the Teletubbies, you're like, there's something wrong."
Yeah, I've been handed many screaming 3-year-olds who are just like, "I don't want this thing. This is a weird man."
They understand intuitively there's something wrong going on, and the process. It's been funny to watch this come out in marketing, because the audience's reaction so far has been exactly like my reaction was when I was first approached. Right, the pitch was, it's like a scary Barney movie, and I was like, ugh. And then I started reading the script, and I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh my God. And then by the halfway through, I was like, I have audible. Like, who do I have to kill to do the puppets for this? This is amazing.
Uh-huh.
And I love how they've been marketing it this, as the film is. It does that same thing where you start out like, okay, and then you're like, oh, wait, what? And it just
Mhm.
takes in this different direction, especially by not making it scary, right? By not
Mhm.
like, we're scary monsters, but like the premise itself, you always knew as a kid was upsetting.
Mhm.
Where I know as Casper talked about, like, where he would watch these TV shows and be like, yeah, but where do the kids sleep at night? Where what do they eat once the camera stops? You know, once the show stops. And so that's sort of the world. And then you quickly realize, like, if this show was real, if something like Barney was real, these kids would live with like a narcissistic maniac, kind of control freak, who is watching their every move and is
Mhm.
desperate for affirmation. Um, and then all the other puppet characters in that world are living in like a state of high terror because they have to watch their every move in case he notices something or decides they don't like him. It's his like desperate need to be loved and to have affirmation. So you
Mhm.
create like a world of constant surveillance, a world of constant, nothing can be trusted. And so when I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is like America. This is great. This feels right. But it was that same thing you were saying, like the premise, people keep playing it like all the way, like the monster's scary, and you're like, no, the premise is scary. The situation itself is terrifying, and the more you try to make it like scary puppet, scary clown, the less fear there is. If that
Mhm.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was
I think
part of
also
the design. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I especially think about with like puppet eyes, especially when they're
Yeah.
perfectly white, that's way scarier than if you make them like bloodshot or yellow or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yes, it's the unblinkingness of it. It's just like, ugh. Just
Well, it also it tells you a lot about when I started talking about that artistry, engineering, and performance.
Mhm.
When you give the fixed eyes like that, it becomes it goes to the performer to make it terrifying, and they can make it 10 times scarier with just like a move of the head than with
Mhm.
gnashing teeth and tentacles. It's just their little subtle movements that become so potent when you
Mhm.
have something really simple and really clean. And that was also a challenge. The cleaner it is, this is also an animation thing. Like the cleaner and simpler the character, the harder they are to design because
Mhm.
everything matters so much.
Mhm. Yeah, when you would talk about like the small movements of the performance itself, I do think of just like when I see just the clips of Buddy like doing the dance and all that kind of stuff, and just like the hugs and the movements, it's just like, oh, I've had to do this rehearsal like several times in the past. I've had to do this kind of stuff, and just like making it like so natural with that costume and with all the puppets in the background. I think it works in a way where it's just like if this was any other performer, like that, if this couldn't work in like a genuine kids movie or kids show, I don't think this would like give that scary effect. Like,
Yes, I mean, I think one of the best days when we were during the production was when we walked onto the set for the first time, and it was like, oh my god, this is it. This is a real kids TV show. This
mhm,
feels like it. Every part of it feels animated and a little too clean and happy and a little too sanitized and very
yeah,
alive. And then when we brought Buddy in for the first time and we brought the characters in, it was like that was probably the most satisfying day. It was like, oh, they work. This all comes together just right. The couch and the clock, Strappy and Buddy fit into this world perfectly. And big props to Anna Kathleen, the production designer, for that. She was amazing in terms of
yeah.
that world.
Was there already kind of like a set color palette for the puppets and Buddy and like the rabbit in general, or was it something you kind of had to work with? Like, was Buddy always orange? Were the puppets always like kind of like this pink tone, or?
That's an interesting and good deep cut. There was a lot of struggle there, especially on Buddy because he's the main character and he's on all the time.
Mhm.
So there were like 4 hour meetings about the tone of his tummy, the tone
Ooh.
of his hair, but we Anna and I definitely conspired to make sure he was orange and blonde. For
Classic narcissist.
classic
Just
narcissist. And then from there, the sort of the palette expanded um, uh, into the pinks. But there was a lot of conversations about that. Yeah.
was it always going to be set in this kind of Barney-esque world that's like kind of a neighborhood, kind of a daycare, kind of a school?
Um, how much can I say without giving too much away?
That's fine. Totally understandable.
I'll say this: a third is in that world,
Mhm.
a third is in the world, and then a third is in a different world. Maybe you've seen some of the clips with like this really the trees behind him, and the kids on the bicycles. They, I want to say everything, but I can't. So yes, that part where they're trapped in the TV show was always going to be just like that. Yeah. We got into production. The producers and Casper were loving what they were seeing so much that they kept asking us for more. So we started building many, many more creatures and puppets than we had originally been scheduled to, which is fantastic. I mean, you'll see when you see it, the world keeps filling up with more and more stuff.
Yeah, yeah. You have mentioned you have like worked with like a lot of puppet films and like puppet like short films, all that kind of stuff. Does this have the most people you've worked with in a production set? Or like people who aren't puppets? Just
mix of live actors and puppets,
yeah.
you mean?
Yeah.
I would go ahead and say yes. I think so. It's not like a huge cast. It's a full cast, and there's also like a ton of creatures. They also, most of them hadn't worked with puppets either, so it was their first time dealing with all of this, and they loved it. Christy Milioti especially had been like aching to do a puppet film. She kept saying that quite a lot. And when we were rehearsing it, was a couple of particular scenes with her. It was just like absolute joy to see how much she loved working with these creatures. And that went across the board. The kids too were like, it's mostly just kids and puppets, right? Which is like 2 out of the 3 worst things to work with in film.
Kids, dogs.
Yeah. Which we do at one point. There is a water scene. But they were amazing. All of them were amazing across the board in dealing with the puppet characters, because it's just practically really hard. There's like people hiding under you and strings all over the place, and like it's a lot.
Well, speaking of the strings, weirdly enough, just from what I've seen, this does remind me a lot of like the early Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I was kind of a weird comparison, but like when I look at those, I love just the sets and the backgrounds and the practical effects. There's a lot of puppetry with the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And it's something that I don't think kind of, because there is murder, of course, but those are very interesting technical movies just on a visual level. And I think it's kind of interesting to compare if like they're like similar worlds to a degree. Like this is almost like Buddy's dream world. Just
yeah. No, you're totally hitting on something there. I think Casper's and Jamie, the other writer, one of their big interests is in the evil trap of nostalgia. And Nightmare on Elm Street really deals with that. It's like perfect little houses on a perfect little street,
suburbs.
But there's this really awfulness that's part of that, right? If you go to the full art house side of it, you're in David Lynch territory. But Too Many Cooks is in many ways about that. It's about this like craziness that TV and media push out into the world. So yes, there's a definite theme. There's an excellent connection you made on that front.
It came out a bit recently, and I liked it for what it was. I know it's like it has a bit more mixed reception. Did you see the movie Mr. Crockett's Playhouse?
I did not.
That has a similar premise of a TV like Mr. Rogers, Reading Rainbow kind of world where he's taking people into it, but it's like the playhouse is like it's a Pee-wee Nightmare Playhouse. It's the level of fun with that, and just like the thing about sets is just like it's such a when you see like just the actors interact with it, I think it gives like an extra kind of like dream/nightmare area. Was there ever like a area specifically in the Buddy world, without getting into spoilers, of just like this is really like just like visually looking at it, you're like, this is so impressive. I think everyone needs to just watch. Like, if I could bring everyone to the set to just show this off, what would it be? Just
Oh, that's impossible. The sets were so good that were created, and I can't. It would be spoilers if I describe them, but there are more worlds than just the Playhouse
Mhm.
people go to, and they did a phenomenal job with those sets.
Mhm.
Again, like it was something about those shows from that era. And there was also something that fit with it, with this production, where we had such a tight schedule and a very tight budget, where you have to just, you don't have as many options as you would if you were doing this CGI. You
Yeah.
have to like go with what you have. And
Mhm.
then the DP and the director have to go like, oh, how are we going to shoot this? And that inspires, that friction inspires like huge amounts of creativity.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it also creates that feel you're talking about, this strange, synthetic, nostalgic, unsettling quality.
Mhm.
So it was like, oh, this is perfect.
Mhm.
Every set we went into had this feel to it. And again, it's all about that friction, right?
Yeah.
Only 2 seconds on the soapbox, but that's sort of like the AI CGI, but especially AI promise is no friction. It's a frictionless world, and you can feel it, and it feels awful.
Mhm.
And when you're making it, you know, running into an obstacle is what allows you to create. It's a dialogue back and forth. The
Mhm.
reaction creates a reaction. You keep reacting to that, and that creates worlds that are memorable and have deep impact.
Yeah, yeah. The way you're describing it, it almost kind of reminds me of like how some people describe making like a sword or something, like a really high quality one of like you take it, you fold it, you break it, you go. But then like when you think like, okay, here it is, it's like, no, it's not. You have to make it like put it under more pressure even to just make it so tight and well done. As opposed to like if you had like a million materials, like a million resources. It's like sometimes having limitations makes your series work to a degree. Just
Yes, absolutely. Like sort of, I mentioned this with Comic Con, but it's also happened that audiences just want that more now.
yeah.
So it's like a positive for both sides, for the creators and for audiences. Having that kind of friction in there makes the whole experience that much more awesome.
Yeah. Casper
And yeah,
Kelly also coming from Adult Swim really makes sense with that. That's
yes,
some incredible, bizarre stuff. My favorite show
yes,
of all time is from Adult Swim, Venture Bros. I love that show. So good.
excellent.
But yeah, though I want to give, as like someone who did have to be a performer and like a mascot guy, I want to give like a very big shout out to the actor playing Buddy. He
Yes,
does an incredible, just from what I've seen. It's like I love that. That's amazing.
yeah.
I always love seeing like these kind of characters become icons in their own degree. And I like, what was the process? Like, did you get to meet him several times throughout the thing? Like, how did you
Yes.
talk to him? Oh,
Sergey is his name. He's fantastic. That was a long audition process. It was
uh,
after I came on, and Sedwan, who was the other suit builder, we sat with Casper, and the three of us went through the audition tapes, and
mhm.
then worked with the finalists. And Sergey had a dance background, and
Nice.
he had the ability to do very. It's a really hard trick to do small and subtle when you're wearing a giant furry orange suit.
Yeah.
Um, and so he was able to master both the big, like, happy to meet you, but
Mhm.
also just like the tilt of the head when the kid says something a little wrong. Um, and and he really grew into it. Like as he got to know the suit more and more, he really started really filling out in the buddy role. And as you
Did,
know, it is like a nightmare in those suits.
yeah.
You're blind. You're just like pouring sweat off your body. And we have fans in there and coolant systems,
That's
but
good.
it's like there's only
Yeah.
so much. So
It
like
might.
yeah,
Yeah.
we would take the helmet off and it was just like steam, and it was like,
Yeah. Yeah, where I work, it's just like if you there's no cooling suits, but if you faint, they're not taking the head off; they're dragging you back before they can take the costume off. Did he like were there overall straps for the buddy costume to help get that gut like up?
um, uh, no,
No.
the strap part where it was built into the shoulders, so it was like a single zip. So he'd sort of like put on the bottom, put his arms in the straps, and then we would put it up, and it was just like a very tight zip. So the whole thing hung on shoulder ring that they held built. So
Yeah.
the suit itself was the shoulder weight, and then head on top in his
Wow,
hand.
this sounds so much like better made than the costumes I had to wear to the grave. Because like I have worn a similar kind of build to what Buddy's wearing.
Yeah,
And it's just like that's heavy, and like my hats off to him. Just
it is heavy. It's a lot. I know. I wore it as we were building it to test it out, and it was like, holy Lord.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's a good thing. How long do you think was he able to do like a standard shot for before it was just like okay, you need to take the helmet off?
so he increased in endurance as the shoot went on, but and also depends on what he was doing. If he's like chasing people around the yard, he needs more breaks. But if he's just standing there, fewer. But not too long, like 10, 20 minutes was our absolute red line.
Mm-hmm.
We would give breaks every 15 because these are like 12-hour days of just shooting and shooting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, some things were crazy. And often there was 3 people involved, right? So he would be in there performing. Somebody else, usually me or someone, would be puppeteering the mouth remotely.
Love
and
that.
then someone else is delivering the lines out loud so the whole cast can hear. So it's like a 3-person operation.
Yeah. Wow.
And then that was given to Keegan Michael Key at the end, so he could work with the voiceover.
Yeah, I mean the cast on this that I've seen who are playing like a lot of the puppets, I really love. I also like that you didn't get like kind of traditional scary people to the degree of like friendly people, because or like people who could like play more with their voices, than opposed to like some kind of like standard celebrity casting with this kind of stuff. Just
totally. Yeah, I think part of the idea was almost like that same cast could have worked with a real kids show, right? Patton Oswalt is the happy backpack, right? Keegan Michael Key, like that. They could have been just these happy characters in a real fun movie. So for them to take the dark turn, really, more authenticity kind of deepens the truth of the movie.
Yeah, I remember when I was younger, I was like doing more acting classes. Like one of my mentors at the time was like talk about like if you're playing like a character who is like who's meant to scare the audience, don't play it like the character's like trying to scare like the characters.
Yeah.
Play it as like he's trying to be normal. He's just awkward in general. Just like
right. It's like that advice for playing drunk. Like don't play drunk. Play trying not to be drunk.
Yeah.
Right? And so same for those actors that were great.
Yeah, just like everything I've seen with just the physicality of Buddy makes me so excited for this movie. It makes me excited for like the future of puppeteering. Were there any like recent puppet movies that like maybe in like the North American hemisphere that came out like in the last few years that you were really impressed by that weren't just by Del Toro? Or
I'm gonna get in trouble if I don't answer this well. I'll have to think about it. My brain is not coming up with an immediate answer. I'll say this though, I'm really excited for puppet films coming out in the next few years because I feel like we culturally and in terms of audience taste, we have ended the age of wanting to see a CGI character, like to see an actual live puppet character or something else. I mean, Dark Crystal Age of Darkness it's got amazing things in there, amazing performances and design. My critique of that is that they used just a little bit too much CGI, right? And then you're like, oh.
It's not quite the same as like the old movie.
Yes, right? And it was like, I was feeling like, oh man, if you guys had just not done that, it would have been like so solid and so amazing that way. But yeah, there's a lot of things that had really fantastic, stellar characters. You've been seeing it in music videos a lot. Like a lot of bands are like pulling puppets in, and it's working.
Yeah,
it's an amazing music videos.
I remember Interpol did that like 2010, maybe 2005ish. That's a bit of an older example, but like the whole the Lifetime song. But my fellow indie animator Donadox, Alice Clay, she's working on a multimedia indie kind of horror series that like mixes stop motion, it mixes like puppetry, it mixes like Blender, it mixes all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I think the only like 2 most recent puppet movies I can think of was Onyx the Fortuitous and the Talisman of Souls, which I liked, and Project Hail Mary that had a lot of puppetry.
Hail Mary is fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, with and I love that they let just the puppeteer voice Rocky. It's like that's so good as opposed to like getting like I don't know, like trying to think of like who would they get for it, like a Andy Samberg. Like I like Andy Samberg, but like
Totally.
I don't think he's a great voice actor. Just
Agreed. No, it was a fantastic choice, and they pushed him forward as a puppeteer in a really great way.
Mhm.
And I think it was a really smart move on their part to really like underline like there was somebody operating that guy.
Yeah.
So, and it makes him all the more impressive when you watch the movie and you go like, oh, there's someone actually operating Rocky the whole time. That's so cool.
Yeah. I think it also shows of like with just like a puppet voice as well, like AI can't really get that level of like inflection, even when you're doing like an artificial voice in universe. And it's just like because there are very small like levels of emotion that like a human can put into that like you can't really get with AI. It's just
Yeah, and that's one of the sort of one of the underlying myths or lies about it is that it will shorten the work, but it doesn't. To like try and get it to sound good takes twice as much work as just doing it the first time with people. And especially when you have Ryan Gosling and James Ortiz going back and forth, it becomes natural, it becomes easy for them both, and they have each other to play off of.
Yeah.
So for the actor, it's like, I mean, you can always feel it. You can always see it, feel it in the performance.
Yeah. I think it's a thing of just like audiences are smarter than I think a lot of Hollywood executives, like the top guys, like just the number crunchers think about, like the bean counters. Like people will respond well to a movie that like has so much like heart and effort and talent put into it. I think that's why we're kind of seeing kind of a renaissance of like older style techniques coming back to a degree, and like kind of more honestly like simpler movies taking like a very big like kind of media by storm, not like in a bad way, not like simple as like an insult, but like movies like Obsession or The Back Room, simple concepts that are just like huge right now. And I think that's why people respond to them so well. Just
Agreed. 10 out of 10.
yeah.
I have time for like a couple more questions.
I actually have just one more statement. Where can people support you? Where can they find you? If they are looking for a puppet in the future, is there a way that you can contact you?
Sure. I'm on the social medias as the Human Beast Box, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. That's probably the easiest way right now, for as long as those things last. And then Buddy opens nationwide on the 28th. It'll be in theaters for a little while, so definitely go check it out. Yeah, I'm excited to see. There's been some real lunatics who come out of woodwork, which I'm so excited by.
Hell
Making
yeah.
their own buddy costumes and their own like scrappy characters. And I'm just like, this is what it's about.
Awesome. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I am Grayworks, your host as always. You can find my other animation projects and horror shorts online. But yeah, take it easy. Bye.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.